All right, we're going to try that again. Thanks, everybody, for your patience. As the prior chair for calendar year 2025, it's my pleasure to get our first meeting of 2026 started. And so we'll call this meeting of the Policy and Equity Committee to order. We often start with some introductions, and maybe we could go around starting with Mr. Rob in the back and go around the horseshoe.
Rob, technician, and if you'd like to speak during the speaking of the public part of the session, please click the hand icon on Zoom, and we'll invite you to come in at the end of the meeting after asking you your name and association to the district. Thank you.
Davis, the Board of Administration. Sophia Dolman, Office of General Counsel.
Good morning, Karen Imbus, Cincinnati Federation of Teachers Field Representative.
Okay, Peter Manuel, grandparent.
Serena Boyd, CPS parent.
Or young community advocate.
Carrie Armbruster, new member of the Policy Committee for the board.
Ben Lindy, board member.
Dr. Moffitt, board member.
Shauna Murphy, Superintendent.
Dan Hoying, General Counsel.
Chrissy Reeves, Director of Student Services.
Michael Gusman, Treasurer and CFO.
Candy Spellman, Director of Accountability and Testing.
Jeremy Dolan, Chief Information Officer.
Peter Brooks, Director of Roads Head.
Welcome, everybody, on this very cold and still snowy, now February morning. Our first item on the agenda is the election of a committee chair for calendar year 26. Are there any board members who would like to serve as chair this year?
I'd like to nominate Mr. Lindy for chair.
Thank you. Anybody else interested? All right. Mr. Hoying, do we need to have a vote if there are no nominations?
I think you should.
We should have a vote. Okay. Let's see, we'll just go down the row. In the motion on the floor is myself as chair for calendar year 26.
I vote in favor.
I vote in favor.
I vote in favor.
All right, great.
Congratulations.
Thank you, everybody. I had a short. No. We got more important. I appreciate it. I'll say just very quickly. I had something prepared in case that we had multiple folks who were interested, but I wanted to just say from the jump that I've learned a lot in this last year and a half of chairing this committee since Mr. Murawski left the board. A few things we've done in the last year and a half that it's every intention of mine to continue, and they're all about process. The first is that while I was chair of the policy committee, every recommendation that we voted out of the committee was voted out unanimously. We didn't have any split votes with policy committee recommendations. It's my goal to continue that. So the things we talk about in here I think are important. I think they're worth taking the time to do well and getting something that can get the support of every board member who is here. So it's my intention to continue that. Two other things that I think have been helpful, and I'd ask maybe Phyllis's help in doing this as we get started, just to ask the board every 6 months, what are the topics you'd like this committee to consider? We'll take a list, we'll build a schedule, we'll make sure everybody who requests this committee looks at something, gets that issue heard. Then the last piece here is we've built a pretty standard agenda that I think helps us get through the important things and end on time. And so my goal is to continue that. And on every agenda, you should see a section reserved for Dan and his team, so that as council's office has issues that they need us to consider, we can do that. Another section that's based on the requests we hear from board members. So if any board member would like the committee to look at something, we have time in every agenda to look at that. And then we have a section that Phyllis and I leave blank for the reactive things that we're not able to anticipate in advance. Because there are always plenty. And so we'll have some time to work through those and end within hour and a half, 2 hours max. So with that, we can just keep going unless board members have any other comments or questions. Okay, first item is an alcohol waiver for the Fasching Beer Garden from Fairview.
Yes, and Rob can correct me, but I don't believe we have anyone from Fairview here today. We were contacted late last week about them having an alcohol waiver for their upcoming Fasching event. They've done it before. The board has approved it before. I just think timing-wise, we weren't able to get them here this morning. I don't think there'll be a problem with approving it in February unless the board is inclined to move it forward for the next meeting. The event I know is in March.
It's no problem. I think for our new board member, this is your first alcohol waiver? Is it helpful to have a minute on what this is?
I'm familiar with the process as my school is trying to go through the process very slowly as well on their own part, not yours. So
You're in okay shape?
understand.
Okay,
Yes.
great. And any concerns about the committee recommending the alcohol waiver for approval?
No.
Okay, we will recommend this for approval.
That's great.
Item 4, committee meeting dates. If board members and council could look at their calendars for a minute. I was going to suggest we find a Friday morning, first, second, third, fourth Friday of the month that works for the board, and try to meet about 9:30. That's the time we had last year and I think the year before. Phyllis, are there other committees that meet? When does finance meet? Friday. Which one is it? The third Friday? So maybe if we look at the first or the second Friday of the month, I think most months that would work for me. Does that work for
Fridays are great.
Carrie, Dr. Moffett?
So far, so good.
Okay. As far as a next meeting date, would you two prefer that we meet again in February or pick up in March? I do not have a preference either way.
I will just say, I think that we need to have, this is a makeup, but I think I shared this in my email, that we need to kind of have one for February and continue the cadence rather than skip. Things come up, and I think it's important to maintain that cadence. So my preference would be to continue in February.
That certainly works for me. Is that okay for you? So if we look, that would mean if we look at this, maybe the 13th of February, that's the second
Yep.
Friday. If this meeting is our January meeting, would that work for everybody as a February meeting? Be 2 weeks.
Friday the 13th.
Yeah, auspicious, right?
Let's do it.
Does that work for you?
That's fine.
Dan? Phyllis, Rob? Good? Okay. So we're going to meet the 13th. And then if we were to look the second Friday after that, just second Friday of the month going forward,
It's another Friday
March
the
13th.
13th.
it's a twofer. We're doing great.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
It is because of February being 28 days exactly.
I think there may be the one-off event here and there where I may have a family commitment, but we can figure those out as we go. Okay, so we're going to book second Friday, starting the 13th of February and then continuing thereafter. Yeah? All right. Last year we had the fourth Friday, which messed up with Thanksgiving and the winter holidays and all kinds of stuff. Okay, so next item is, as luck would have it, our December policy meeting and our January policy meeting were both snowed out. And so there's a tradition that I will let Dan introduce that we didn't do in December that we are now making up.
Sure. So usually at the last policy committee meeting of the calendar year, I'll just celebrate the achievements of the policy committee from the previous year. So if you will, I got about 2 minutes on.
Yeah, I just please imagine that Mrs. Weinberg and Kendra are here.
And hopefully
because
they're watching.
Hopefully they're watching.
Yes, because the first, and I think one of the big achievements of the policy committee last year was Ms. Mapp had a great deal to do with, and that's implementing a first of its kind mental wellness policy. We've had a wellness policy for about 10 years that a whole variety of team members at CPS worked on, and that was a first of its kind, and she introduced the concept of a mental wellness policy. Under the policy, and it's been adopted at this point. Each school is staffed with mental health and school counseling professionals such as social workers, psychologists, intervention specialists. It ensures that schools are equipped with calming spaces in the classroom and in the school, implementing a social emotional learning curriculum, and supports employees as well with wellness through accessible and therapeutic services. The policy committee spent a lot of time, especially last summer, working on implementing, I'll call it kind of Trump-era legislation This included policies that we were required in some cases to adopt relating to religious expression days, and CPS students who are immigrants and refugees, students who identify as transgender. And I think the policy committee and the board was successful in maintaining our district's identity and principles as we worked through implementing some of these new requirements. There was some talk this year about the superintendent selection process and the important role that the LSDMCs continue to play in that process. The policy committee introduced a new element to CPS report cards to inform parents how their children are performing academically as compared to other students in the district and in the state. We revamped the treasurer's evaluation to match the work previously done by the policy committee regarding the superintendent's evaluation. We made permanent last year the policy committee's recommendation not to charge CPS students a student fee. That was something that was introduced for 1 year last year, and then the policy committee recommended, and it was approved to eliminate that fee going forward. And finally, we talked a lot about how our students are enrolled in CPS schools, high schools, magnet schools. We started to evolve from this sort of lottery random process to a more customer-friendly selection process where parents are engaged in choosing where their children will attend school. Last thing I was going to note, something important to the treasurer and maybe all of us, we changed the way that our district employees are reimbursed for meals on the road, going to a per diem model rather than reimbursement. I think I speak on behalf of the entire Treasurer's Department, folks who travel and work for CPS, and those who are tipped, the service providers who are tipped by CPS employees on the road. We thank the board for making that change as well. So
I think it's really lovely, Dan. And I appreciate this every year. I appreciate this, but also because I think for either new board members or a newly constituted committee, we handle so many different kinds of things in this committee, from very high profile to very low profile. A good example is the alcohol waiver we just approved. But I think they really matter in the lives of many different people for different kinds of ways, and we take them all very seriously. So I take them all very seriously. I won't speak for anybody else. But thank you. Any questions for Dan about the recap?
Yeah, I do have a comment. I do think it's important for the public to know what has been occurring for the past 12 months with the policy committees. I think it's great that we can reiterate that. We did something similar when former board member Morosky was here. He kind of did that, but I think it's good to have that recap every year because we are working and listening to our public. So thank you for the team and everybody that worked on that. Appreciate it.
It's great. Thank you, Dan. Okay, so then we have a couple sections to what's coming here. Dan, am I right that there's nothing in the standing policy review cycle for this meeting?
no, though, there's a couple of new business items.
Okay, so just for our new board member, the council's office keeps a schedule of making sure that on a 3-year basis, every policy that we have gets reviewed by this committee. So there's often legislation that happens that causes us to look at some new policy or do something. But even if there isn't new legislation, we on our own make sure we get through everything every 3 years. So that's what that section is about. We have a healthy list of things in continued discussion and a healthy list of things in new business and hearing of the public. So what I'm going to propose is that we aim to be starting the new business section no later than, say, 12:35 or so, which will give us plenty of time to talk about continued discussion, but also make sure that we can, I know that the cutoff date for kindergarten, for example, is something we got to talk about today. And so we'll make sure we get to that also. Okay? Great. So on grading, I think this is on here for one discrete reason, but then also likely some other ones. So I know that Mr. Crossett requested at a board meeting that the committee take up the question of whether we might look at the policy we passed in 25 and create an opt-out for parents. So I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but the request from Mr. Crossett, based on some emails he'd received from parents, was could the committee look at whether we could adjust it so that there's an opt-out? So I know that that's one thing that we want to talk about today. I also know we got a packet from the Cincinnati Federation of Teachers with some concerns about this policy. I also have a copy of the op-ed that ran in Sunday's paper, I think, in support of the new policy. And I think we have the author of that op-ed here with us. So my hypothesis is that some of the hearing of the public that people would like to do is about the grading policy. And if that's true, if it pleases the committee, what I was going to suggest is maybe we hear from board members first. And then if people came to talk about this, we do that part of the hearing of the public now. And then we can see what emerges. We can have a discussion. We can talk further. But then we do that while people are here. Does that sound like an okay way to proceed?
Point of clarification. I had asked at a board meeting when we were talking about this around engagement. What the engagement process was for the policy committee during the time of inquiry to establish the policy, and then inquired also about increasing engagement with families around the time of passing it. So that's also something that I'd like to kind of, in addition to clarifying the policy, as a new member, I need to really understand, and I don't have that policy, I'm going to pull it up, what it says, but then ask about engagement and then a little bit more clarification. So, yeah.
Sure, that sounds great. So I think our plan will be any comments board members want to make, I'm happy to share what I can about what you raised, Dr. Moffett, and then invite public to speak, see what issues are out there, and then work our way forward. Yeah, so I think just to respond to Mr. Crossett's request about sending this to the committee for this opt-out idea, I have to tell you that I do not have a strong opinion one way or another on this particular issue. I am a big supporter of this policy. I want us to keep it. I've shared those reasons before. I can see reasons why an opt-out would be a great idea. I can see reasons why an opt-out idea might be challenging, and I'm open. And so if people have strong opinions one way or the other about that, happy to hear it, and I could go either way. To Dr. Moffett's question about engagement, Jeremy and Dan were here for a lot of those, and you can maybe refresh my memory if I forget something, but we had a lot of engagement with the administration, which is different from families. And part of that was getting data to look at, figuring out how to interpret that data, trying to figure out what might even be possible when it comes to putting some indicator of a reading level performance or math level performance on a report card. I feel like you were here for one of those meetings where Amanda Vargo and Jeremy presented like a series of options, and there was this, I think, nice trade-off between the more subject and grade levels you want to cover, the more complicated the way of doing so becomes. So you could either do this everywhere in a very complicated way, or do it in a smaller number of subjects in a more straightforward kind of way. And so where the committee landed was the original proposal was actually all the way through 8th grade, and we shrunk it because we didn't feel like there was a way to do middle school in a way that was as clear. So there were a lot of administrative conversations. I think at the same time, we heard from Karen and CFT at some of the meetings, I think at every meeting. And then we heard from, I got an email I know from, I may get the name wrong, but it's like a policy subcommittee for CFT. I may get the name of that wrong. But we did hear from them, and am I getting it wrong?
Well, I think that was one person speaking, not on behalf of the committee.
I gotcha.
How I read that.
Okay. And then we had several parents come and speak in committee meetings. So I think it's I will say that in my tenure on this committee, this has been more engagement than I think I've seen in many policies. And yes, there's always more that one could do. But that's, did I miss anything, Dan or Jeremy? Did you want to follow up on that at all?
I do. So I've heard from parents for it. We heard them at the board meeting. I've heard from people against it. There's a huge discussion on social media. But I'm trying to review this in real time, and forgive me of my ignorance. Does it specifically say iReady? Because we've gotten to that conversation about putting, it seems as if the conversation is saying, do not put iReady on the report cards, and I just didn't see iReady specifically named in the policy, nor did we approve it. So I'm wondering, how did we get to the iReady grade being on the actual report card and the mental health discussions that have been surfacing as a result of that?
I think the specific is current reading level and current math level. And then in examples, it does mention iReady, but that is not a requirement. I think the requirement is the reading level and the math level,
That's exactly right.
is my understanding.
Well, see, then I think that part of what needs to be expressed to the public is the conflation that we're focusing on iReady, because that says example, but that doesn't have to be what is put on the report card. I thought that the gist of the policy was to inform parents as another tool, just like the report card is a tool, another tool of where their reading grade level was. And that could be written, that could be iReady. I mean, that could be the teacher saying, hey, I tested you on a standardized test, whatever, and you didn't test at this level. It doesn't have to be iReady, but it feels like there was a large group of parents that wanted to know that additional information as another tool. And it feels like iReady has become the bad person, the bad system. But maybe we talk about or list other assessments that could be utilized. I don't know how CFT feels about that, but that was one of the things that I was asking about. How do we get to iReady when it's just listed as an example here? And that has become the focus of the op-ed. That's the social media discussion. That has been the discussion from CFT, is posting iReady. I think, I don't want to misrepresent you, but posting of iReady has negative impact to students if they are not on grade level. But the report card could do the exact same.
What I would propose, because I think this is really important, is that we just hear from people who came to speak on this at hearing of the public, if every board member's had a chance to raise at least some initial questions. Because I think what this will help us do is just name the different issues that are coming up related to grading. Because you've mentioned the iReady piece. There's also the opt-out piece that Mr. Crossout was raising. There may be other parts too. Do you have a thought?
I just wanted to talk from like a parent perspective really
Yeah, please.
quickly
Yeah.
before we get to them, just so people can kind of understand where my brain is, and then you can kind of react to that. So as a parent who has seen iReady, who has seen report cards, like I've been hearing all of this, I've been processing all of this. And I just feel like I can see and understand all of it, because I never want a kid to feel bad about themselves, but I also think it is incredibly important when you're thinking about, as a parent, understanding where your kid is in general versus what effort they're putting into the classroom, right? So I'm not here to make a teacher feel incompetent or that we're questioning their ability. I respect their grading process incredibly, but I think the difference in grading for what the child is able to achieve in the classroom versus where they are in terms of overall progress on reading and math isn't always the same, and that's okay. And that's not to say that their grading is incorrect, right? And so I do feel strongly that informing parents is important. The methodology of that, I think we can have a discussion on. But as far as the iReady report goes, there's been a lot of conversation about how easy it is to access the iReady report. It is not. I want to make that very, very clear. As a parent who needed the iReady report to have her son get tutoring in a subject, I had to request it. It took a couple, it is not accessible to us without going through a teacher. And you have to know what to ask for, and you have to, it's not there. I just want to make that very clear, because it's made it, there have been comments that have made it seem like it's readily accessible to parents, and it's not. So I support informing parents. I would love to hear more about ways that we think that we could do that productively that aren't this, if we have a problem with this. But I think the policy in general is a positive one for our parents and for our families.
Thank you, and I'm sorry if I preemptively tried to skip you.
You're fine. I'll tell you what that was on.
That's great. So then let's hear. We can start with whoever wants to go first and hear from everybody. I think, and this doesn't have to be the only time people speak, but I want to give everybody. Would we usually do 2 minutes, 3 minutes? Two. So we'll start with two, but that doesn't have to be the only thing people say. I appreciate everybody who comes, and we can start with whoever. And then Rob, when we've done the in-persons first, I don't know if we have. Do we have anybody online?
Julie Seller just does one, too.
Great. So if she or anybody else wants to comment, then we can bring them in too.
So wait, as a point of clarification,
Yeah.
are we going to give Julie 2 minutes? And I'm not trying to censor. I'm saying the agenda is very tight. You made it
Yeah.
to do that way.
Yeah.
Normally, the CFT president gets longer than 2 minutes. So I'm just asking. For
Yeah,
clarification.
I'm not interested in censoring anybody. So if she'd like more than two, I think that we can. But then anybody else who would also like to hear more, we can do that.
I just want to clarify before emails.
Yeah, that's a fair question. It is a fair question. So who would like to go first?
Well, I wasn't extended if you wanted to speak first. Will you speak?
I am going to speak, and I think Julie's going to speak. I'm happy to kick it off, or you may. I don't.
Sure, go ahead.
Oh, sure. Okay. So, obviously, teachers appreciate this discussion. I'm speaking on behalf of all teachers and saying that we have an interest in transparency as well, and in parents becoming more engaged and increasing the opportunities for parents and teachers to engage and build that trusting relationship. We don't think that this is the best way to do that, for reasons that I think Julie Sellers, the president, has expressed at the board before. We think it'd be great if there were more opportunities for parent-teacher conferences, if we had interpreters, if we had opportunities for parents or for teachers to review lots of testing data with parents, and we're open to all of that. But we believe that one mark on a report card can be misleading, and mostly that what might seem like an effort at transparency could actually produce the opposite result, which is that it is not helpful, but discouraging or confusing, and can exaggerate the importance of a test score. If this comes from some other place, if this comes from, the teacher's evaluation of what grade level the student's on, that might be a different story. And I think that would be probably more productive. I'm speaking off the cuff here. I think it's really helpful to engage a lot of parents and teachers on this issue, which I don't think has happened. But we have had the experience many times of teachers recommending that students not pass to the next grade because the students are not coming to school. They come often from charter schools. They're well below grade level when they come. Then they come, they don't show up very much, and and those students get passed. So I think there are a lot of mixed messages that are getting sent in the district, and just to close, we're all for transparency, but we think it's more important to build trusting relationships. And I
Thank
think
you.
Julie will have something to say after all the folks who are here in person.
Thank you.
Yes.
We're just gonna go down the line, and we actually just prepared because we didn't know how long we could speak, so we just went and.
Do you want to turn on that mic so that that will pick up the audio for you?
It's on.
You got it. I'm gonna let Ms. Tori go for. Okay, I'm sorry.
All right, you're fine.
And then make sure to pull it towards you a little bit, okay, so they can hear. That might
Pull it towards you. In other words, if you go online, can't hear you. There you go.
You got it.
Thank you, my friend.
Okay, you're welcome, no worries. Good morning, afternoon. My name is Tori Young, and I live in the West End, and I've had 5 children in Cincinnati Public Schools. And I am a parent leader with the We Excel Cincinnati. Today, I want to address what transparency really means for our children's futures. Promotion without preparation is not success. Passing a child forward who cannot read or do math sets them up for frustration, disengagement, and long-term failure. We owe our students honesty about where they stand so we can get them the support they need now, not years later when the gaps have widened. Transparency builds trust and keeps families in public schools. When parents discover problems are hidden, they disengage or leave the system altogether. Honesty keeps families invested. I want to stay invested in CPS, but I need the district to be honest with me about how my children are really doing. The data already exists. Parents are just asking to see it. Teachers are already tracking reading with math proficiency. We're not asking for new tests or additional work. We're asking to see the information that already exists so we can support our children at home. This policy is about access, not blame. It's parent, teacher, and student. Transparent report cards don't shame teachers. Or students. They equip parents to support learning and advocate early. When we know what's really happening, we can be a part of the solution. Don't leave us in the dark. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
As a grandparent and going through the reading portion of this, you suspect as a parent or caregiver something's going on. And then, of course, you get a report card that says an A or B. And you're going like, oh, okay, maybe I was, false flag, whatever. And then you get the other testing and you go like, wow, I'm, behind. And so now you're in like this, like, how do I catch them up? How do I do this? And that's the aggravation. That's where I'm at. And I wish I knew earlier. Because now a whole nother set of things have to go on. So I just don't want other parents who might be in the same situation that have to go through that. Because it's hard, and you know that after third grade, it gets worse. And so that's where I'm at, after third grade. So I don't know if something can be done to really make it before that deadline, because that's what we really need to do.
It should be on.
Yes. Okay. Hello, my name is Danielle Wagner, and I reside in Walnut Hills. I have a kindergartner in Cincinnati Public Schools and a sixth grader in private school. Also a parent leader with We Excel Cincinnati. But I'm here just to speak as to why I am in support of data transparency and why it's important. Parents cannot act on information they don't have. Right now, families are receiving report cards that show passing grades while their children are still reading below grade level. We often learn our child is struggling only after grades close. When meaningful intervention is no longer possible, that has to change. Only 39% of CPS K-3 students in our lower performing schools are reading proficiently. It's just a crisis we cannot ignore. When a majority of our young students cannot read on grade level, but most are passing their classes, something is fundamentally broken in how we communicate with families. Working families need clear information, not more meetings. Many of us can't attend conferences during the workday or keep up with emails. A transparent report card is the most reliable way to reach every family with the information we need to help our children succeed. This policy has already been passed. Now it's time to implement it. The board did make a decision to move forward with transparency. Continued delays undermine that decision and keep our children stuck in a system that isn't serving them. No matter the demographic, all our kids deserve a chance to thrive. I say give the policy a real chance, improve it as needed, but don't keep families waiting while our children fall farther behind. Parents want to be partners and bystanders. So let's build trust back within the school districts and build a trusted and supportive partnership between the school and families. Trust us with the truth about our children's progress, and we're ready to be a part of the solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle.
Okay, great. So we'll do last one here and then two online.
Okay, so to those of you who don't know, again, my name is Tarina Boyd. I am a CPS parent. I also am the founder and executive director of We Excel Cincinnati. So thank you for having us all here and hearing us out today. We really do appreciate that. But I'm not here to put the blame anywhere or push, right? We are here not asking more than what is due to us for our children. I'm here to talk about action, and if I've already made you have already made the commitment, the board have made the commitment about the report card policy. You have already acknowledged that our current system is broken. You have already voted to lift the blindfold and give parents the truth. But let's be clear, it's a policy that's just only on paper right now. And if it's only on paper, it's a lot to our children. We are done with the planning phase. We are done with the excuses. We're about the strain on the system. The only strain in this room is the weight of 61% of our children who cannot read proficiently. Yet we're being pushing them through the system that claims they are doing fine with the A's and B's. That's the Band-Aid. We voted for transparency. Now we demand implementation. Implementation is the bridge between a promise and a result. We don't want, and I wanted to go real quick. I'm speaking of K through third grade. And I seen you over there and I was just like, I don't want to make sure I'm not fabricating any numbers. We don't want to be here. We don't want to be here about the difficulty of the data we don't want to hear about the complexity of the report cards. We want to see the truth in the hands of every parent in the district. Transparency is not a burden you carry, it's the foundation we build upon. If you stand for the youth of Cincinnati, we're here for all kids. We will stand firm on this policy. We will move from the boardroom, from this room to the classroom, to the house, where parents have this information. We will move from approval to action. So don't let the noise of adults or those who don't want to see this move drown out the needs of our children. They are waiting for us to step up, stop talking, and start leading. The policy is set, the commitment is met. Now let's move this ball today. Our children cannot wait. We will not wait, and let the truth be in the power. I really appreciate your time, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nobody else in person on this topic, I don't think. Okay, Rob, we have 2 online.
Danny, you need to accept the invite to join us as a panelist. I'm going to resend it now. Julie Sellers, you're active.
Hello. I'm glad that this conversation is happening. As you know, I spoke at a board meeting in December, and that was on December the 8th. The decision to vote on this was taken to the board on the Monday of, while schools were closed, it was the Monday of Thanksgiving week. And I just want everyone to know, after this policy was voted through, which we were surprised that it was voted through at that early point because there had not been enough discussion with teachers or parents. And I really did days of research around this. With the research, I was able to come up with the only good research that I heard about iReady reports came from iReady itself, curriculum assessments. What I am saying is that even all of the research says these are formative assessments to guide intervention for teachers and families. Maybe it is difficult to find the iReady, but I do know that there's a lot of parents who do have access to it. Maybe before we make a drastic change that could have negative impact on children, and I have heard from parents that their child has an IEP and the report cards are given out and how they're concerned about how their child is going to feel if their friends see that they're in the 3rd grade reading on a 1st or 2nd grade level. That is enough information to cause bullying to some of our most vulnerable populations. We have schools that have high percentages of students who they enter kindergarten and they are some of the very lowest KRA assessments, and that's the kindergarten assessment. And then by third or fourth grade, they have made so many gains, they're caught up with their peers. And that is because they're learning English at the same time they're learning to read. And everybody in the room should know that most of the reading is based on vocabulary. And that takes more time for some children to master than others. But a formative assessment is never an assessment that should be given out as like an official level or an official grade or an official level of achievement. I would suggest, because this was supposed to go into effect next year, so I don't know why we were rushing it in November to hurry up and pass this policy that wasn't really vetted. I think that the chair of the policy committee said to the board that he had talked to me personally about it, and that never happened. I think that many of the people who are pushing for this don't understand the difference between formative and summative assessments, and I'm not blaming them. That's not their job. But teachers have years and years of experience, but they also have years and years of experience looking up research. They see things that are probably like, why are there disconnects? I've actually talked to one parent, and their child was a brilliant child. He was like one of, a kid that, probably will test for gifted when in the third grade. But his reading assessment was way low, like several grade levels down. And it was because, and the parents said, why did you, when they saw the assessment or the report, they said, why is your reading score so low? You can read. And the parent and the child said, because it's a boring test and I don't like to do, so I don't really care about it. Do we really think that first, second, and third graders are putting full effort into all of these benchmark tests and all of these short cycle assessments and all of this information? And then I would also like to say that iReady is not even aligned to the state standards. The district is now, Ben's been putting in his report every single month, his newsletter, that only 27% of teachers are teaching curriculum. Well, what do you want? And I think that we need to have an honest conversation about this. What is it that you want teachers to do? Do you want them to teach standards, or do you want them to teach curriculum? But as long as we are focused on curriculum, and I will say I have done research with this, teachers have done research of crosswalks. In the fifth grade science, less than 50% of the standards are in the Amplify curriculum. So before we start, so teachers have to go outside of the curriculum in order to teach what kids need. Some of this stuff I feel like is just a way to, number one, it's an attack on our own public school system of, look, you're not doing a good job. What percentage are you looking at by school demographics? Are we looking at attendance? Because attendance is powerful. We have kids who have missed 50, 60, 70, 80 days of school, and they are still being passed along. And that is not, I don't think, in any child's best interest, but also retention shouldn't be an intervention. But we're not getting enough money. Now that we have more schools that are title schools, each school's getting less of the title funds. Everybody wants their child to have a reading specialist and a math specialist, but there's only enough money for most of the elementary schools to have one, and that's K-6. They're focusing on third grade because that's where the test is. I truthfully believe that the intervention should begin in kindergarten as soon as they come in and start providing interventions for that. But our state hasn't funded that. Our federal government through the title dollars hasn't funded that. And so it would be great if every child who is on a REMP was able to get a full intervention reading specialist, but that's not the case. And are we looking at how is this going to impact our students with disabilities? How is this going to impact our English language learners? How is this going to impact kids who have high number of days of absenteeism? We need to come together as a community, but I also think before we start anything with this strategic plan, we have to have some philosophical discussions, because the teachers who are educational experts and have years of experience with research, we need to start, instead of making, let's try this and let's try that, let's have some transparency and actually do some research for some of these things that we are trying to put in place, and quit using our kids as guinea pigs. I taught hundreds and hundreds of kids to read when I taught kindergarten. They didn't even know their name, their colors, their shapes, the letters, the sounds entering kindergarten. And I know nowadays, because of so many kids going to preschool, that there's so many more kids who are kindergarten ready. And they should be learning to read in kindergarten and first grade. But for whatever reason, they're not getting the support of reading at home. They're not getting access to books. There's too much stuff that's online. It's messing up their brain development. The research in many of the top performing educational countries across the world, they are removing all screen time from all kids pre-K all the way through sixth grade, because it's not good for brain development. So I suggest that before we move forward with this, we all sit down and actually have a real conversation, look at some data, look at the numbers, because I don't think anybody has really done that, and quit making decisions on something that is another test pilot, and maybe try it at 1 or 2 schools and see if it makes a difference. But I know if parents can't find iReady on Focus, they probably aren't looking at the report card on Focus either. So we need to start doing a better job of preparing and training parents on how to access those documents for their children. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rob, we have one other online speaker.
Danny, you can go ahead and unmute your mic. Danny.
Thank you. Yes, thank you so much for Ms. Jolie saying what she said. She shared a lot of touching points for me as a parent and also a member of the We Excel leadership team. I am a parent from South Avondale. We've been here 6 years at South Avondale. My daughter started kindergarten here, and she's now in 6th grade. My son was a 3rd grader from Norwood Elementary when we came here. And now he's a freshman at Withrow. So she touched on, I want to thank Ms. Jolie because she touched on a lot of key points that I have been saying over and over and over and over and over again as one of the few active parents at South Avondale. Principal April Simmons will actually tell you I am the only parent, or was the only parent on the LSDMC up until last year. For the longest, I was the only parent for the past 6-7 months at the Withrow LSDMC as well. I am very active with my kids' education. And the part when which she said that if they can't find the iReady information on Focus, they're not looking at the report cards. Oh, that was touching, because I know I am on Focus so much, it comes up within so many seconds. I screenshot my kids' report cards, and it's still hard for me to locate, or not even locate, but understand the information that is scored in iReady. It gives you numbers. It does not give you a key as to what that means. As somebody who is educated, who was homeschooled majority of my life because my mother did not think that Winton Woods Public Schools was doing anything for myself and my brother, who also figured out we had ADHD at a later age. And as somebody who is has such a love of learning, I used to rent out hundreds of books at the library at one given time. Like, as somebody who was tested in 3rd grade to be reading at a 6th grade level, and somebody who is so academic, proficient with computers, I teach others how to use computers for fun. I found it hard to find that information. As somebody who literally works with foster age, transitional age, foster youth from the ages of 17 to 21, and seen some youth leave our program at 21 with a 9th grade education because of the lack of care in the educational systems that CPS is producing. I find everything she said very dissatisfying. I have so many friends who are teachers and educators who started teaching because they saw the lack in children knowing how to read. I am also a member of the selection committee of the Greenlight Foundation, and I have literally put forth a program that pushes education from preschool and all of that, with the preschool promise and everything like that. I believe it was called the Leading Men Fellowship. Yeah, I was one of those people on that selection committee. I understand the importance of all of this knowledge. I'm also understanding that my kids' schools shut down as an elementary school because it was not having their needs met. And now it's a middle school. Like, I understand the importance of education to the point that my kids are annoyed with me because I'm always picking up books and telling them to read. Now, what we're asking, what we're begging, because some of us got time. Not all of us have time. I actually had to take time off to be here while I got to return my rental after being in a car accident. So I'm forcing myself to be here to show up for those who cannot show up, to speak up for those who do not know how to speak up. We need to know what's going on with our children's education. You guys spend the most time with them. The only thing we have is a piece of paper at the end of the day. Not always do we get the report cards given to us by our children. I know my son has been throwing his away for the past 3 to 4 years. I have to look on Focus to know what his scores are. I have to reach out to the teachers every school year to say, hey, this is me. Here's my email. Here's my phone number. I am on Talking Points, Class Dojo, whatever system the school sends out for communication with the teachers. You can find me there. At every parent-teacher conference, you can find me there. At every IEP conference, you can find me there. It is disheartening that I had to push for the past 3 to 4 years for my kids to have a proper IEP to show their ADHD diagnosis or anything like that. And I did not get that until we had the diagnosis of autism. And we still don't have a proper IEP in place. And that's for those who know. So this is what I'm saying. If there are so many people out there in my community of South Avondale, Withrow, Rockdale, my community, who, one, we know is a transient community. 2, we know there's mental health issues. 3, we know there's trauma. And 4, we know there's a lack of funding. If we know that this community is lacking in so many resources, and me as a parent who has the knowledge, has the time, and has the skills is having a hard time getting the support and resources for my children, what are these other parents going through? Who is going to speak up for them to make sure that they get the help that they need and that they deserve, to make sure that their children get the free and adequate education that they need? And I've even done my own research to find out if they were given an IEP, there is money set aside at the state level for tutoring, at home tutoring, after school tutoring, that's just not left alone on the teachers. I'm in full agreement. Teachers need to get paid more beyond what they're getting paid. They need more time off. They need more sick time. They need more teamwork with the parents. but we need the tools as well. If I'm working 9 to 5 helping foster youth, when can I show up for my own kids but after schools? And if I can't be there all the time like I want to be, who is going to be there? We know that majority of the kids in the community and nowadays are more than likely coming from a single parent household. So if we know only one parent shows up and that one parent who does show up is working, how are we going to make sure our kids have what they need if we're all struggling or lacking in different areas? Like, my goodness, you're talking about teamwork, which is the same thing us parents are talking about. You're talking about more information, which is the same thing we want. I don't care what system it comes from. I don't care if it's a proficiency test. I don't care if it's from MAPS. I don't care if it's from MIT, Ohio State, Miami University. Get some interns down here. I don't care what system it comes out of. I need to know where my child stands so I know how to properly assess their needs and what they need to do. And then it's bananas that teachers are not even able to say, hey, your kid is struggling. No, duh. Why are y'all not telling us that so that we can show up the way we need to show up for our children? We are a team. You got your time, I got my time. We should be easily able to communicate. Back in the day, my mama got notes home from the teachers. You know how I know? Because she still has those notes 20, 30 years later. So if we're doing that kind of communication, we need to keep it up. All we are asking for is to know what is going on. No digs, no disrespect, no all of this, because what is said on here is said into the children's classrooms as well. I know because my teachers told me I had enough homework to feed a horse. Later found out I was reading at a 6th grade level in the 3rd grade with ADHD and possibly undiagnosed autism. So if that's the case, it's the stuff that the teachers are telling the students that are making our students want to self-delete. How do I know? I was one of them. How do I also know? Because my daughters told me some stuff too. If our teachers are telling our kids, who we have seen a total 360 after medication because they have a diagnosis finally, hey, you don't need medication. Whoa now, you're not a doctor. You can't tell me what my kid does need and don't need as far as the medication that's stopping her from running out this classroom and causing her to sit down and pay attention. She needs that help. If we're getting that kind of stuff, we don't need that from teachers. We need more teachers with an open mindset, a trauma-informed mindset, mind you, cultural awareness minded as well, with a heart of education, because I understand burnout too. If you're burned out, get out the job, move over so somebody else can take over. But we need more teachers to show up with love and care, and which is what I've been receiving at South Avondale the whole time I've been, majority of the whole time I've been there. And I need to see more of that from other schools. Us shouldn't have to join different organizations and push for different organizations so every child has the free and adequate education that they need. We should not have to go through Walnut Hills or go through SCPA for our children to have the free and adequate and proper education that they need. Schools
Thank you
should
so
not.
much, Ms. Burris.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you have any last sentence or two you want to add, please go ahead. And then I want to make sure we can open it up to the board members
No,
too.
thank you. You're fine. I'm fine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have any other speakers, Rob? Okay. I really appreciate everybody who spoke, everybody who came in, and I want to turn to my colleagues to see if they have any thoughts that they want to share.
So I want to thank everybody for their comments. I hear and I see you, and I also have heard and seen CFT's perspective. I'm a little confused because to me, this policy is about engagement. It's not about iReady. It's not about trying to diminish the mental health of students. I have spoken to quite a few parents that are younger. I'll give you my own grandchildren's parents, and they were not in such opposition. So I am a little confused because I feel like this is being deflected in a manner that is not intended to. every opportunity for parents to engage and understand and help us in the team of helping their kids, I don't understand why we're having opposition. I also don't understand why we're waiting, because the board passed the policy that was collectively voted on. It was passed. It is up to the administration to implement. The administration can, as they decide to how they're going to implement this and bring us back some information around cost and around how it looks, they can continue to engage. But the policy was passed. Now, I feel a specific type of way because data is being presented that says that our students, the majority of our students are not proficient. That to me is an emergency that we need all hands on deck. We need everybody to be helping us. And this is not about rating teachers. This is about empowering parents. So I don't understand why there is so much, well, I do understand it. So let me just stop there. So I just feel like this is being turned into something that is not intended. And I also don't feel that this is good for parents to be combative. To increase parent-teacher conferences would require, it's not simple as it's being presented. That is in their collective bargaining agreement for the unions that we have, the things that we currently have. So if we're going to talk about implementing additional things, increasing interpreters, increasing parent-teacher conferences, that's a bigger discussion, which again delays the implementation of the policy, which is not, it should not be that way. And so I do hear that perhaps the retention policy needs to be adjusted. So I would put that under new business, because the social promotion, and we've talked about this since I've been on the board as well, because we looked at the social promotion policy and tried to put some additional teeth behind it to pass students who are not proficient in their grade level. And I've seen students who are in the 10th grade and unable to read. So that's nothing that I'm looking at in theory that's actually happening. That is a disservice, and to me, criminal to these students. So it needs to be looked at. To the teacher's point, to the CFT's point, it needs to be looked at. I don't think this is in a silo. I don't think this is just about this particular policy. I think this is about, in totality, how do we engage parents to help us help these students to that point to benefit from their constitutional right to a free and public education. And so I don't even understand why we're having this discussion. The policy was passed. It was passed in December. Engagement could have been better. And I think that is the administration's responsibility to continue the discussion on implementation. But I, as a board member, expect the policy to be implemented expeditiously, just like any other policy that the board passes. We can come back with some templates, we can come back with some theories, we can come back with some hey, this is what we're looking for, this is what we're thinking. I don't care if it's a pilot, but I want something, because quite frankly, I was a parent who, at the time, my kids were a little older, but it was not easy to access information. If one or two parents tell us it's not easy, then it's not easy. And we need to address the least of us, not just the most proficient of us. So I'm sorry I didn't mean to do a soliloquy, but I just don't understand why this is not being implemented as it was passed by the majority of the board members months ago. I don't even understand why we're talking about not doing it. It was passed as a policy. And I'm looking on here, and this is November 2025. So now we're 2 months, we're February, we're almost 3 months in what is the typical time frame of policies being implemented? I kind of want to hear from the administration, what's the process, where are we at with regard to implementing the policy that the board passed?
So Dr. Moffitt, before the policy was passed, part of the discussion, Mr. Lindy and others allowed us to look at is how long will it take us to do the technical work of this? So I think we have still a runway to do the implementation. So it's not that we haven't followed through on the directive. I think it's a lot because board members asked for it to come back here. So I don't think we've stopped our work. I think Jeremy's in the room because he is continuing on the technical side.
I think that's exactly right.
I'm
Like,
sorry.
no, I'm agreeing. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's my point.
Yeah, no, I just was trying to say I agree. And I think that we looked at, doing this at least once this school year and saying it both like clear enough that it has to happen, but open enough that they can figure out.
Yeah.
Like, and so I just think what the superintendent was sharing was quite aligned.
Okay, I just was wondering, again, this is my first policy meeting back from being off of policy for a while, but the deflection around waiting and engaging and all that, I want to assure the people who are, and there have been more than just you all, who have emailed us and told us that they wanted the policy. So just because we're seeing you doesn't mean that it hasn't happened. But I want to assure people that the policy was passed, it will happen, but the administration is doing their due diligence, which is what they're supposed to. So I'm sorry, last thing I want to say is, it was said, teachers are educational experts, and I respect that, and they absolutely are. But the experts in the room are the parents who are experts of their children. They are the consistent history books, and we are a team. We're not adversarial. We are a team. So I want to make sure that gets retained in this. This is not anti-teacher, I promise you. This is all about putting more people on the team so that we can better educate our students.
Thank you, Dr. Moffitt. Ms. Armbruster, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I would just say, oh, sorry, go ahead. No. Okay. No, I would just totally agree with Dr. Moffitt. Like, I see this as a great collaborative opportunity. Anytime we have the chance to do more communication between families and teachers, the better. I honestly have seen teachers struggle to figure out how to do parent-teacher conferences with just what they have. I can't imagine getting them the ability to do more without making them feel even more overwhelmed by the prospect. I do think that translation and interpreters and all of that would be incredibly powerful. Those are all things we should still be talking about. Where I think the opportunity for collaboration really is, rather than talking about whether or not the policy should exist, is how the policy is implemented. Why are we not talking with teachers and parents and administration, right? The board did their job. We passed the policy. Well, if we're worried about it being I-ready because the teachers don't feel like that's an accurate representation, that's fair feedback. So that's not what the policy says. So let's hear from teachers to the administration about how we could accurately represent where our students are on that report card. So that's what I would encourage moving forward with, is that we have collaboration between parents and teachers and the administration on the implementation side, so that everyone feels like this is the right directive, and representing where our students are so that we can get the best outcomes for them, because at the end of the day, that's the whole reason the policy exists.
Thank you. I will do this as quickly as I can. And I want to just say again that I strongly support this policy. It sounds like we are unified on that front, so we can kick off the year with our unified policy committee, which is great. There are two reasons why. I asked Rob, could you pull up that data for a second? I know I've shared this with the administration before, and people who have come to the meetings last year will have seen this, but just for our new committee, and I will do this as quickly as possible. This is what we looked at last year. And I know it looks small and hard to read, but they're pictures. And I think for me, pictures help me understand things. And in each graph is a different school in Cincinnati Public Schools. And what's on the x-axis, the horizontal one, is the grade that a student received in math. It's on a 1 to 4 scale, like a grade point average. So if you get an A, you got a 4. You get a B, you got a 3. You'll see some half grades there. That just means a student got one grade first quarter, a different grade second quarter, and that's the average. On the up and down y-axis, you'll see their iReady score on the same grade math content. And so a 50 there means that student is on grade level. If it's above 50, they're above grade level. If it's below 50, they're below grade level. And so if we just look school by school for a moment and look at school C all the way on the right, this is a healthy school from my perspective in terms of the report cards, because a student who brings home an A or a B is on average at or above grade level. That's why it's got a green circle. If you look at the students who are getting D's and F's, it's also a green circle, not because we like D's or F's, but just because it accurately corresponds to how those kids are doing on math. If you're getting a D or an F, you're more likely on average to be below grade level. So a parent could read that report card and draw an accurate inference for how their kid is doing. But take a look at School B. School B could not be more different. That red circle, those are all students who got, almost all of those are kids that got A's on their report card in math. And all of those students are below or seriously below grade level. If I'm a parent and I read that A, I'm not crazy for thinking my student is doing fine, when in fact my student is quite far behind. And School A is fascinating because you got a mix. The kids who are getting A's, that maps to being at or above grade level, but look at the B's. So my student brings home a B. I know they've been having a little bit of difficulty. Oh, but it couldn't be that bad, right? Because they got a B on the report card. But if you look at those scores, some of those students are multiple grade levels behind in getting a B. So I think I think it's important in decisions I make on the board. I do try to lead from data because I think it represents more experiences. And so 3 different schools, 3 different stories, but in at least 2 of those schools, there's real value in transparency for parents in putting the reading and math levels in the report card. So all that to the side, I just have to say that as a dad and as a parent of a student who was quite far behind, and was doing well grade-wise on the report card, if it hadn't been for the iReady report, I wouldn't have known how concerned I should have been. And so just as a dad in my own story, this was really important for us. I knew what to look for, and somebody said this, I can't remember who, but like you have to know what to ask for and you have to know what to look for. I've worked in education for over 20 years. I knew those things. But not everybody has that experience. So again, I strongly support this. I don't plan to vote to change it. And I'll just say that like, there are risks with this. It's not as though it is risk-free. Like I hear the bullying concern. I hear the risk of overgeneralizing from one data point. I do think we tried to mitigate those risks where we could in the policy itself. I'd point people to the paragraph that says, the administration will include language with the grade report that any testing is a snapshot in time, and the district will provide a way for the teacher to provide an additional context on progress, interventions, and enrichments. That was not in the original version. We added that in committee to try to address some of these concerns. So it's nothing is perfect. I feel like this is very important and that the pros outweigh the cons. We got to move to some of the other things on our agenda here in a moment. The one thing we have not addressed was the reason that this originally appeared on the agenda today, which was because Mr. Crossett asked for us to take up the idea of whether there be an opt-out. As I shared at the outset of the meeting, I just see pros and cons on this. What I would propose is maybe we take 6 minutes and hear 2 minutes from the administration, any pros or cons they see. I'm thinking mostly about how difficult it would be to administer that, but I don't know. And then maybe 2 minutes to hear from parents who are here, 2 minutes to hear from CFT. And I don't think we'll make any decisions on this, but I want to honor the reason why this appeared on the agenda and at least give that some discussion time. Maybe we can come back to it. We're meeting again in 2 weeks, so we can come back to it. But administration, like, do you have any? I mean, I look to Jeremy, I guess. Like, is that like if the board wanted there to be a way for parents to opt out? This was Mr. Crossett's question. Is that possible? How easy? How hard would that do? How much time would you need to have an answer to that kind of question in like a minute or 2?
Yeah, I think I can relatively answer that it is possible. It would be a matter of timing. So with the expectation that we were on schedule to implement at least one version of this by the end of this year for the report card one time, it would be very difficult to get an opt-in, opt-out selection for parents because typically our method for gaining or gathering that information is during the enrollment and the back-to-school packet and the onboarding. So that's where they would elect whether we want to be able to share private information or if we want to opt out of communications, or that's our moment in time to gather that level of opting in and out for stuff. During the middle of the year, the practicality of doing that would be very, very difficult for any response rate that would work.
That's helpful. Thank you. And we go in either order, but anybody from parents or from CFT would like to speak on the idea of an opt-out?
I will. I'll say something about that. I remember when we were discussing when we came during November and we were well, you guys were discussing like what all would need to be on the report card, what test should we show? And I remember saying it's like we have to figure out which test we would use or what method, because it necessarily doesn't have to be a test, right? And so I just wanted to highlight that is very important, but I also want to know that parents have the right to choose what they rather see on their child's report card too as well. So if they would like to opt out, then that's their choice. But it does, it probably like
Disservice the child.
kind of in the family and the teacher, because maybe that could be the best way that the teacher is being able to give that information to the family. So I just want to share that. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. So we have 2 minutes for anybody from, we can start with Julie or Karen or whoever. Defer. Okay. Go ahead, Julie.
I would say that I think the first thing that needs to happen before there's an opt-in or opt-out is how do parents access the parent report from iReady? It's iReady for reading and iReady for math, because that is where I think a lot of people are not getting that information. And there are 2-page reports and they are in very friendly parent language. I passed it out on Saturday so people could see what a sample ballot or a sample parent report looks like. I also think that it would take a lot of education for parents to be able to either opt in or opt out, because a lot of parents who have students with IEPs may want to opt their child out. They know that their child isn't reading on grade level, because otherwise, if they were reading on grade level, they probably wouldn't have an IEP. So I think that we have to talk about those things. How would that happen? But I think that parents may not know at the beginning of the year exactly what that means, because it is something that's new. But I do think it's a good option.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So we'll keep this in the continued discussions item for next month, just to pin down a final recommendation from the committee on whether there should be a parent opt-out.
Hey, Ben, could
I'm
you?
going to go, Julie, I'm going to go to Dr. Moffat first, and then you can be
Okay.
next.
So I'm curious, Jeremy, about the opt-out piece, but I'm really only for that if there's no additional cost, because we don't have money and we need to get parents information. So I would love to see suggestions that don't require adjustments to any type of contracts or additional funding or additional staffing, because we don't have those things. So as we develop solutions or potential suggestions, I would absolutely love to see things that don't require our staff to be overloaded, which they currently are, and don't require any adjustments to contracts. So to Mr. Gullahue, would any type of opt-out cost additional money, like any additional programming or any, would there be something different to have an exception rather than just make the rule the rule?
Ultimately, and I caution myself a little bit when I focus on the intangibles in terms of everything's going to have a cost.
Sure.
So there absolutely would be a development cost in terms of adding a checkbox to our back to school packet and those options to get it in there. There would be a cost. I don't believe that cost would be a large amount of development time that would be prohibitive to doing so within what we do.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Julie, and then we're going to keep moving.
I would hope that before this is all implemented, that we have a robust conversation that includes teachers of different grades and different math and reading. But I do think that there needs to be some strong conversation around this, especially so we can avoid the negative consequences that could come from this.
Thank you very much. Following a robust conversation about the grading policy, and thank you everybody for participating. Dan, let's move to a new topic, which is policy 5630.
Can't hear.
Thanks, Julie. I appreciate it. Sorry, my microphone wasn't on. Policy 5630, 8410, both have carried over If there's further discussion on those policies, glad to talk about it. But the administration doesn't have any changed recommendations or revision recommendations at this point.
And could you maybe just in less than a minute, wait, sorry, is that the same for all three of those bullets?
So the third bullet, policy 9212, relates to non-school organizations. This is PTOs, PTAs,
Yeah.
et cetera. We're still working on that, so we don't have a revised version. The board did make an amendment to that policy at the end of the year.
So no requested action for us on the non-school organizations?
Not at this meeting, no.
Okay. Could you then, just for the middle two, 5630 and 8410, could you in a minute or two just summarize for the public or for guests what our district approach to, I mean, these are really important. Corporal punishment, policy crisis and behavior and intervention and support, I mean, these are big deals.
right.
I think you all have put a lot of care and thought into what this says. Could you just say a little bit about that for people who are listening?
That's right. And in general, our approach with both these policies is to maximize de-escalation within the schools. To do that, we offer CPI training, Crisis Prevention Institute, which is sort of the gold standard for training. And we try to get as many folks trained in CPI as possible, whether that's principals, assistant principals, security, go through a regular retraining on that. Individuals working in specialized classrooms, paraprofessionals, but just put out another pitch for support of the CPI training, because I think it's good for the individual taking it and our schools. In general, our rule for using any kind of force with students always remains the same. It is that force should not be used except reasonable force may be used to prevent a child from harming him or herself. This is the kid's about to run into traffic. You have absolute authority to grab that kid by the jacket and pull him in. So to prevent harm to himself or herself, to prevent harm to other students, or to prevent harm to staff. So that is the mantra that we try to train on.
I really appreciate that. Do board members have any questions about either of these two policies? Okay, hearing none, we're going to move out of, we have two number 5s on here, so we're now done with both number 5s. And for number 6, we don't have anything for the standing policy review cycle
Not at
this
this time.
month, but we might
will
in the future.
Pick it up again with I think it's the students section, so I believe it's the 5,000 series.
Great. Look forward to that for next time. And so this leaves us with 38 minutes or so on the important new business topics we have. And I just appreciate everybody. It's an important meeting.
Yeah, so this relates to, and I'd welcome anybody who's here to chime in on this conversation, but it relates to HB 114. It's something we talked a little bit about at the board retreat on Saturday. HB 114, which was passed this calendar year in January of 26, sets a new cutoff deadline for the age that a student must turn 5 in order to enroll in in kindergarten. Our longstanding rule, and lots of districts around the state, longstanding rule was September 30th of the year. A child had to turn 5 by September 30th of the year they enrolled in order to be eligible for kindergarten. The state has moved that up to the first day of school. So now all schools in the state are supposed to use the first day of school as the cutoff date by which a child must be 5 to enter kindergarten. Not to rehash our discussion on Saturday, but we generally don't have an objection to this as a district. We're open to making that our date. Dr. Moffitt had asked for some academic kind of research about what that means for students, and I don't think anyone since Saturday, at least, has looked at, kind of ongoing. We did look at, I looked at some academic studies. There are some longitudinal, long-term kind of studies that talk about whether it's better for kids to enter kindergarten later or earlier. And there's a couple of studies about it saying that in general, there's an initial boost in academic performance for students who start at an older age. That starts to become more muddled as they move through. What I didn't want to give you the impression of was that our state General Assembly was looking at the academic data about what's good for kids when they made this change. There is nothing in their record that talks about what's good or bad for kids. It is all about making a uniform rule for all states. They do talk about what the money is, what the financial effects are going to be, but it's all about making this uniform. Every school in the state will have the same date. And then at the last minute, they changed it from August 1 to the first day of school. Again, creating a situation where all schools in the state are going to have a different cutoff date for the first day of kindergarten. And it's problematic, as President Craig said at the meeting. We're thinking about, like, so we use the same date for our preschool entry, and we very well could be in a situation where a kid starts preschool on an earlier date, a later date in August, because that's our school start date. And then the following year, when that child's expecting to enroll in kindergarten, still won't be eligible because the date changes from year, our first day of school changes from year to year. So something we're thinking about. They were aiming for uniformity, and in my view at least, failed miserably. That being said, generally no objection from the district to using the first day of school. Our biggest concern and the recommendations we're making here relate to that transition. So particularly in a district that has this really strong preschool program, something that there is a lot of academic research to support that jump starts a kid's education preschool much more than the age that they start. So with our preschool, we've got 4-year-olds who are currently in their second year of preschool expecting to start kindergarten, but won't have met that age cutoff. Similarly, we have 3-year-olds who are in preschool, sort of pre-K1, expecting to do a second year of preschool next year and then start kindergarten. And they won't be age eligible because they fall into that first day of school to September 30 birthday timeframe. The proposal is to use the district's authority to offer students early admission, and how we've written the policy, the red line of the policy, and written both in board policies 5112, which relates to the entrance requirements for kindergarten, and 5112.01, which relates to the entrance requirements for preschool, that will update the policy to reflect the state law that the cutoff will be the first day of the school year. And then we offer or propose additional language, which you'll see for the 26, 27, and 27, 28 school years, to offer early admittance to parents who request for their children to be entered into kindergarten. So that's sort of the transition proposal that we're offering to the board.
And Dan, that transition proposal is fully allowed by the state law? Like we're
So
not,
it's
we're
a
not.
good question. It's stretching what the law allows. HB 114 relates to, one second.
If this came up on Saturday, let's skip it. If it did not come up on Saturday, I wanted to ask about it.
Yeah, and I want to explain it, I think. HB 114 says, changes the law that relates to admittance to kindergarten. What the law says is that there's sort of 2 different periods for early admittance. If the child will turn 5 before January 1, the district has the ability to use discretion to evaluate the child is ready for kindergarten, as long as they're going to meet that birthday by January 1. That's been the law for some time. So we have been allowed to evaluate a kid whose birthday fell between September 30 and January 1. We have used that very sparingly. And I think we talked about like 2 or 3 kids a year that we've found eligible for that. After January 1, in order to admit a kid early, if their birthday is, if they're so young that they won't turn 5 until after January 1, you can, the district can evaluate only pursuant to the state testing protocols. I think is it Iowa? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an Iowa acceleration scale. So that's the only way you can admit a child after January 1. There is much more board discretion for the kids we're talking about here who will have fallen, their birthdays will be between the first day of school and September 30th. And we are asking the board to put in kind of a blanket rule. The thing I'd remind you is up to about 30 days ago, if these same kids walked into customer service and said, I'm ready to enroll in kindergarten, we would have said, here's your
Oh,
enrollment.
it's great. I think the rationale is
Yeah.
solid. I just want to make sure we're not going to get ourselves in trouble by doing it. And it sounds like,
The stretch we're doing is that it says the board may use its own discretion to evaluate the child into.
well, let's use that discretion.
That's kind of how I
Yeah.
feel. We
And
have
I
run
think the
this-
evaluation process is that the preschool that they've been in, I think that's a qualified evaluation.
We agree 100% on that. Understand this, the way we've written this would also apply to a kid that's not been in preschool. So that was something we've talked a lot about.
Yeah, and my sense is that the parents who have relied on what law has been are in a tough spot if we don't do this, and so this is a deeply human thing to do. I support it. Do you have any thoughts?
It is very much a transition idea here.
Yeah. So this is just a good opportunity, process wise. Like when we this will be, I think, the first, aside from the alcohol waiver, like I guess the second recommendation to come out of this committee this year.
Yes.
Yes. So one of the things we did last year and the year before, we have on our board agenda is a consent agenda. And so one of the decisions that we usually make in policy committee is when we recommend this out of committee, do we want it to go into the consent agenda or do we want it to be placed separately on the agenda so that it gets some airtime? My recommendation, I'm open to feedback. Superintendent, yes.
Just may I ask a question?
Please.
Chair. One, I want to, because this kind of addresses what Dr. Moffitt said earlier about the report card piece. Chrissy's here. She wasn't here Saturday. This is putting her on the spot because she didn't know. But to the point of what we're suggesting, how will that tax the staff? And I just wanted to get and have her share with you her thoughts
Great.
on what impact it might have.
As far as the acceleration, the early, it should not, I don't think it should overtax us any more than we already are. As Dan said, and as you pointed out, it's already gonna, kids who are already going to get in would get in. We will continue to follow the same policy from that October 1st through December, end of December date. We'll follow the same testing protocols that we did before, and it shouldn't be any additional burden to the staff.
Thank you. Yeah. So my recommendation would be that we put the alcohol waiver in the consent agenda because I don't think we need to necessarily talk about that as a full board, though any board member who sees it in the proposed can pull it out, like if they want to. But for this, given the number of emails we've received from parents about this and how big a change it is, I would recommend we put this separately and give Dan or the superintendent a chance to talk about it for a second. Does that please the committee? Okay, so then Dan and Phyllis, does that get you what you need from us on this?
I have one more point I'd like to make
Yeah.
on the preschool piece. So this is 5112.01. I'd like to point out, like, if there's a group that could be unhappy about this, I'd like to give the board a heads up about this. So understand, this will help the families who are expecting their children to enroll in kindergarten this year and in kindergarten next year. There is a group of families who have 3-year-olds or 2-year-olds now who won't turn 3 until after the first day of school next year, but we're expecting to start their kids in preschool next year. Our recommendation, at least though, that as we've talked to, is to stick to that first day of school cutoff because otherwise we're creating a problem for us, not next year, but the following 2 years from now.
It will never stop if you do that.
Yes.
You have to put a stop to it.
So that's the recommendation, but wanted to make sure you knew there will be some folks who were expecting to have their kids in CPS next year who will be told, I'm sorry, the law has changed.
My question to that is, have they been notified via the lottery that they've been accepted? No. Okay.
And is there any way, I mean, some of these are, is there any way we can, I'm worried the answer is no, but like, could we do anything to help provide more notice to those families? I mean, some of them, like, we have no contact with them because it would be their first kid. Some of them are gonna be siblings though, like of people who are already with us, like, is there anything we can do to try to broadcast this?
Vera?
I think we can publish something either on our website through our registration process, that we just get out on our media outlets in general to share as a result of House Bill 114. This will be our process moving forward.
And yes, and with a particular call out to this third group.
Absolutely.
Like the current, all the almost 3-year-olds, right?
Absolutely. Mhm.
Yeah, Vera?
Students that we know of and that have gone through the school choice that would fall into that level. We have gone student by child, that we can reach out to that smaller group because we do know who they are. And we do have tried to think of other ways to help support.
That's great. Thank you.
That was gonna be my question, Vera, about Ms. Brooks, about how many students would be impacted. Because I know that sounds nice to say it's not that many, but to me, 50 is a lot, you know, like 100 is a lot, and that's not very many when you're talking about thousands, but I'm very interested to see what that number of impact would be, and then if they have a recourse to maybe, I don't know about preschool, but I mean, you know, what can we do, just like we're doing this exception on this end, what can we do to help them get into something if they were expecting that?
To get into something, well, there's where we would look into some of our partnerships with
Yeah.
Children's and
Okay.
others, Help Me Grow and things
Okay.
like that.
Okay.
One of the things that I know, Dan, and thank you, Mr. Hoyne, for all your help this week with this, is the rotating and the revolving start of school date. Like next year, I don't know the calendar yet, but it might be the 19th, might be the 20th. Then the next year, it might be the 18th, might be the 19th. There has to be a steady date or we're always going to be in this cycle. And we want to service our families. So we do know when we looked at the big picture, when we first started this, when we went child by child and we looked at how we could possibly utilize, if any, grant funding, whether it was ECE grant, levy monies or whatever. It started out with about 400 students, families. Now with your all's decision, if this goes through, it will go down hopefully less than 100.
Okay.
So we're never gonna have a certain date because that's not how the calendar works. So we're never gonna be able to say the 18th because one year it's gonna be Tuesday, one year it's gonna be Friday.
right.
So I can't imagine that it's going to be more than a handful of kids that would impact from year to year. If we're not changing by weeks, right? Like if we're changing by days. Right, so could we just go through this same exception process for those students if their birthday is a day or two off? And I would assume a limited number of children that this would impact from year to year?
I'm guessing the same, and we may have some language to propose to you for the
Yeah.
policy to update it, but
Yes.
our biggest concern. is
Because
the
I'm
next
assuming we
students.
can't say like, sorry, state, we're gonna go with August 15th because
Right.
we'll know that's always going to be before, or
Right.
we can't do that.
It seems like you can't, there's language
Okay,
that says.
fair enough. I
because
just thought
Our
I'd
thought
ask.
was to use August 1.
Yeah.
I just think there's irony in the.
Call your legislators, everybody.
They want to bring consistency and then they
Yeah.
still don't.
Was there a question over here?
Well, no, I'm just saying if it ain't broke, don't fix it. September 30th was the end. October 1st to January is when you evaluated the children to stay in kindergarten, early age kindergarten. I had one. She got tested, she passed. She was in kindergarten at 4. She didn't turn 5 until that time period. Why?
We don't have a choice.
We don't?
No, the state.
The state passed a law that said we have to do this.
But what I wanted to-
Yeah,
okay.
please.
I'm sorry, what I just wanted to add with Dr. Moffett, and I'm sorry I don't
Vera
call your name,
Brooks.
Vera,
Yeah.
but, having those additional resources for families that are not eligible, right? And those community partnerships, like you said, preschool promise, so they're starting to get developed and they're growing, and they're not losing that interest, and they're not looking beyond, public education, because then they start finding other schools and things of that nature. So I just wanted to add on to that. That was great.
Thank you. So I want to make sure we're getting administration everything that they need from the committee. You have a proposed policy that we have approved from out of committee. It's going to go on the main agenda for whatever the next business meeting, I'm assuming. Does that work, Phyllis? Yes. Great. So that takes care of the first 3 bullets. I think we have criminal background checks next.
Yeah, this is a small item, but one we would like to get through if possible. This came actually from our security team, the union, the HR, all support this. As a part of our criminal background check rules, This is still all consistent with state law. We have student teachers who come in, and sometimes we want to facilitate student teachers. These are students who are in college who are training to be teachers. We want to facilitate them, make it as easy as possible for them to get in. They are required, in order to be a student teacher, to have what's called a pre-service teacher permit issued by ODE. Or the Ohio State Board of Education, and the requirements for the criminal background check match exactly the rules that we use here at CPS. They had been being asked to go through this criminal background check to get their permit, and then they come to us and we say, well, you need to go through another criminal background check. So we're asking if they have that pre-service permit, which is a time-limited thing, that we would be allowed to use that in lieu of our own background check.
Do board members have questions or concerns about the recommendation from council?
Nope, all good.
We'll move that.
Sounds great. And let's just, to me, this feels simple enough that we can put it in the consent agenda. Does anybody feel differently? Okay, because they're literally the same requirements.
They are.
We're not lowering our bar
we
for
use
who
ODE's
comes in.
requirements.
It's the same thing.
That's
Great. Excellent. Okay, so that takes us to the last item on here, which is general counsel policy. Yeah, I might start this one if that's all right. So if we go back to the fall of 25, we did, and Dan mentioned this earlier in the meeting, we made some updates to the treasurer's evaluation timeline so that it just made more sense given how the year unfolds for the treasurer. And we mirrored some language around goal setting and accountability that is also in the superintendent's evaluation. As part of that discussion, at least Board Member Bolton, there may have also been other board members, asked the policy committee to take a look at the general counsel's evaluation. And she was recommending that we make in policy the general counsel a direct report of the board. There was mixed views on that. I think in the discussions we had with Mrs. Weinberg and Ms. Mapp last calendar year, there are pros and cons. One of the ways we tried to make some progress is we started looking at a model board council policy that was put out by a group that I think both Dr. Moffitt and I have been members of as school board partners. And as we looked at it, we realized, oh gosh, this is really quite different in some areas. Some areas is pretty close. In some areas, it was quite different from what our current practice has been. And so we just ran out. This is what got snowed out in December. But what we had teed up in December was the person who wrote the model policy for school board partners was going to join our meeting by Zoom to answer questions about what the rationale for some of the model policies were, pros and cons versus how we do things here in CPS. I think that this has been pretty wide open, and I was suggesting that we look at the model policy just so we have a place to start, given that there were some conflicting opinions about what this should look like. My proposal, though I'm very open to do whatever the committee wants to do, is that we pick up where we left off. Because we didn't have a chair and because we have a totally new committee, I felt uncomfortable asking that person to come to this meeting without a chance to talk about it first. But I'd just love to move in whatever direction the committee would find most helpful.
Go ahead. You go first.
Yeah. I always like to learn from others. I think best practices should be shared, so I'm happy to learn what's happening.
Thank you.
I love the group. So as far as I'm concerned, I think they have a lot of wisdom to share. I will share my position on this from last year. Is slightly different than Board Member Bolton. I don't think that the general counsel should be a direct report to the board, but I do think it should be a dual report. And I do think that there should be board weigh in on that evaluation. There's just too much that the general counsel does for the administration that I think we can't evaluate. But I also think that there are things that are done by general counsel to the board that also need to have input as well. So that I know you shared what her opinion was, but I think we were torn because there was that confliction as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm closer to your perspective on this too. But I want to, and I also too, like I chose the school board partners model policy because it's the only one I knew of. And I just want to invite other board members or council or the leadership, like if you have others out there that look like a best in class, whether that's from OSBA or the Council of Great City Schools or whoever, I think more learning is better. And we just invite other submissions if people would like to include those. So then, Phyllis, I think we can put that on the agenda for. Well, actually, I'm going to follow up with the guest. His name also is Ben, and I'm going to ask to see if he's available. If he is, we'll do it, and if not, we'll do it the next policy meeting where he is available. So, could you just, Phyllis, could you send out that model policy to the current committee? So they have a copy of it. And then Rob, do we have anybody on hearing of the public who is on a different topic than the grading policy or who didn't speak?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I just have a new business item, I guess for general counsel to look up. It's this Senate Bill 311. There was an email that went out through like COSBA, et cetera, about some of the educator licensure language and zoning language proposed changes. Again, these are not changes that are in effect right now, but they could impact our district if they get to pass through the Senate and the House. So I'd like for you all to kind of review that and tell us what, the question that was asked of board members across the state was, what do you all think about this? And I was like, I'm gonna get our general counsel, and policy is coming up, so.
We've been talking about it last week. So
Okay,
I'll
good.
give you a full report.
Okay, thank you, that's it.
Any other new business from board members?
I would love to look at the LSDMC policy and explore the possibility of having them, since they are involved in the recommendation for principals, having them have a review of the building principles once a year that would be provided back to the administration. And see if that's a possibility.
Put that on the agenda for 2 weeks from today.
That would be great.
What's that meeting, the 13th?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Absent any other business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Great. Any opposed?
No.
No.
not at all.
Great. Stay warm, everybody, and we'll see you on the 13th.